Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of Dial It Up. Today we're going to be talking about team abilities. Now the last few sets that have come out has seen a resurgence of team abilities that we haven't seen in many years. Even going as far back as Invincible Iron Man, we started seeing team abilities pop up again. For a while there, when we were getting keywords and ATAs, traits and special powers, team abilities kind of went to the wayside. There were team abilities that popped up all the time that you always saw, like Mystics, and Batman and Superman, but a lot of other more fringe team abilities didn't show up as often. And I'm not sure the reason on this, but with this change, with this shift towards doing special powers rather than team abilities, which was really the only extra power that we used to have before character cards came out, they decided that they were going to stop printing team abilities. So for anyone that was playing back in the day like I was, you would remember that when you got the pack, on the back of the pack, there was actually the list of the team abilities, depending on what starter you got. So if you happened to get a Marvel starter, you would get a list of the Marvel team abilities. If you got a DC starter, you would get a list of the DC abilities. I think there was at some point a generic pack that got printed with both. But either way, we're just not seeing that anymore. And it's kind of a hindrance to newer players because they now have to go track it down online. So these starter sets are supposed to be everything you need to jump into the game. You get the rule book, you get the pack, you get tokens for objects and hindering terrain, smoke terrain, stuff like that, but you're still losing this essential part of playing the game within having the team abilities. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to spend this episode and next episode, it might be cut into more episodes depending on how long they run, explaining what the list of team abilities do for you guys. So first off, we're going to start with the DC team abilities. And at the top of the list is the Batman Ally. A character using the Batman team ability can use stealth. That is probably the easiest team ability that I'll ever have to explain on this list. So simple as that. I have the Batman team ability, you now have stealth. It is an unwinnable power because team abilities can't be countered unless you have a specific special power that says it's going to counter a team ability. These are just extra powers that you're getting that you're always going to have, unless specified otherwise. Next up, we have the Batman Enemy. Characters using Batman Enemy team ability may replace their attack value with the unmodified attack value of an adjacent friendly character using the Batman team ability. So this is kind of like Defend, if you are familiar with the power from the standard list of powers in the pack. If you are adjacent to another character that is using the team ability, so if you both have them printed on your dial, you can share attack. It is the unmodified attack, and it is a replacement. Why that is important is because you're going to take what's printed on the dial. So if you have an 8 attack, but Bane's next to you and he's got an 11 attack, you're going to take that 11 attack, and then you're going to modify it, however. So you got it, it's a replacement, so it's that base 11, and then modify it by whatever you would like, Perplexers, Close Combat Expert, Range Combat Expert, whatever is going to change or modify your attack value there. So the stipulations on that is that they do have to be adjacent, and they do also have to have the team ability. So as long as it's both printed on your bases, or somehow you are getting it through a special power, you're going to be able to swap or take someone else's attack, much like you would in Defend, use someone else's defense power there. The next one is Calculator. Calculator. Characters using Calculator team ability are wild cards. Now, wild cards in this are a thing on their own in this game. Wildcarding, having a wildcard team ability or wildcarding a team ability means that you can take or use a team ability that a friendly character can use. So if a friendly character has a team ability printed on their base, and you would like to, and you've got a team ability, or one of the wildcard team abilities on your base, then what you're going to do is copy that team ability. Now, there are certain team abilities that say they are uncopyable, so you won't be able to take those ones, but as long as it is a copyable team ability, you can use that. The other part with wildcards is that a wildcard team ability only has to be declared when you want to change it, essentially. At the beginning of the game, or any time during your turn, you can declare what your wildcard is copying, and you don't have to declare it again until you feel like changing it. So if at the beginning of the game you're going to declare Mystics, you just Mystics till the rest of the game unless you want to pick someone else's team ability. So that was actually a bit of a change. I'm not sure if that was 2013 or 2014 that brought that change in, but you don't have to declare wildcards every turn anymore, which is kind of nice. With everything that you do have to remember to do with this game is to not have to worry about your wildcards. As long as they were declared once, you're always going to have that team ability. And then, of course, if that person that you are copying the team ability from either loses their team ability or is KO'd, if the source is gone, you don't have that team ability anymore because you're not copying it from anything. It's not there. You can copy something else if your Mystics character dies and you decide you want to take Batman and ally. Sure, why not? And of course, with my misstep there, with Batman enemy, or any team ability that requires you to have two characters with the same team ability, wildcards will help you with that. So if you have a wildcard and a Batman enemy next to each other, you can wildcard the Batman enemy, and now you can share attacks. The next one that is on the list, we actually just saw pop up with the New Year's review previews for Trinity War, is the CSA team ability, Crime Syndicate. Crime Syndicate. Characters using the Crime Syndicate team ability can use probability control. When a roll is ignored because of this team ability, an action token must be placed on a friendly character on the battlefield or the roll is not ignored. And this is one of those team abilities that is listed as uncopyable. So you can't, if you're wildcarding, you can't take this one. So this is basically like a souped up theme prob. Any character using the CSA team ability can use probability control. If they do, an action token has to be placed. Now, they don't have to take the action token, unlike theme prob. There are no real restrictions to this. As long as a friendly character is given an action token, you can re-roll that roll. One of the things you'll notice if you are looking at these lists, which are found under the rules section at heroclix.com yourself, is the wording is a little, I'm going to say, off, because these team abilities haven't been revisited in many years. So a lot of game terms that they use are not so much used anymore. They're not obsolete nowadays, but things are more streamlined now in the way that they're worded. So certain team abilities may seem overtly wordy because of the time that they came out. So this has no restrictions. So you don't have to worry about the restrictions that are on the theme prob. Any character on your team that is friendly can take the action token. So if you've got a 3-point bystander sitting in your starting area, hey, now I have prob. But all other restrictions on the game fundamentals are still going to be in place. So if a character can already use probability control, you're not going to be able to use the CSA team ability. If a character already has 2 action tokens, they can't take an action token for you to be able to use your prob. So you still have to follow the rules of the game, basically, to use this team ability, but it is it's quite a fun one, and we're actually going to see a fair amount of it come out with Crime Syndicate being a sub-theme within Trinity War. So next on the list is Green Lantern Corps, which didn't actually see a resurgence, which is a little surprising given War of Light. that just came out this past summer, but considering that War of Light was a sealed, excuse me, a sealed set, created for the purposes of doing sealed tournaments, I understand why they didn't widely give out this ability, because it would completely change the way that those teams and those games were played. So for the Green Lantern Corps, when using the carry ability, characters using the Green Lantern Corps team ability may carry up to 8 friendly characters. So you have to already be able to use carry. Either a flyer, a giant, what have you, whatever it is that's going to give you carry, you have to be able to use carry. This team ability doesn't give you carry. It just alters the way you use carry. And then when you use carry, you can carry up to 8 friendly characters. Now, there was a discussion going on about the possibility of carrying up to 18 characters when you take into consideration the tiny size carry. Tiny size does give you the carry ability, but only to carry tiny size people. So if a tiny character was adjacent to someone with the Green Lantern Corps team ability, it would allow that person to carry 8 tiny-sized characters. And they went even further into that to say that you could carry 8 tiny-sized characters as well as 8 regular-sized characters. Now, unfortunately, they didn't really explain how that works. When you have a character, just how carry itself works is that that character has to start adjacent to the character carrying. And there are only 8 possible squares for you to be able to be adjacent to. So, and then on the flip side of that is when you're done your move action, when you're done your movement with carry, you have to place those characters that you are carrying in adjacent squares, which once again, you only have 8 adjacent squares. So I tried really hard to get an answer on how you could possibly carry 16 characters and be able to legally pick them up as well as legally place them, but I didn't get an answer. So if you guys can figure that out, if you can get the rules team to answer you, that'd be awesome. But as of right now, they say you can. Between carry and Green Lantern, you can somehow carry 16 characters. I just don't understand how that works because of how carry works and only having 8 adjacent squares. Hypertime. Whenever an opposing character given an action attempts to move from a non-adjacent square into a square that is adjacent to a character using the Hypertime team ability, it must roll a d6. On a result of 1 to 2, the opposing character cannot move to any square adjacent to the character using the team ability. Characters using this team ability ignore the non-opposing characters. Once again, like I said, with these being older rules, they're very wordy, not as streamlined as we're used to nowadays. I do say that. It's true. I swear it is true, even though a lot of special powers nowadays are getting very, very wordy. I promise, they are more streamlined than they used to be. Anyways, basically with this team ability, if you have someone with the Hypertime team ability and someone is trying to charge them or hypersonic them, once they get to the point where they are going to move adjacent, you have to roll a d6. And on a 1 to 2, they can't move there. So it's kind of like shape change, but for movement, where on that 1 in 3 chance, that character now has to stop, and they can't get to this guy for the rest of the turn too. And it's specifically that opposing character. So I mean, each character gets a chance to roll to get close to this guy. Much like shape change, where it's just that person is now can't get close to them for the rest of the turn. And then the other part of that is that if I have Hypertime team ability and you have the Hypertime team ability, we're not going to cause each other to go up against each other. We ignore each other's team abilities, basically. What I'm trying to say there. So next on the list is the Injustice League. Now, you're going to hear me say it a few times because there are a couple of on this list as well as for the Marvel team ability list. There are several team abilities that desperately need a revisit. They are team abilities that came out when the game first came out and really aren't relevant anymore. They're not beneficial for what they do. And so this is kind of one of them. Injustice League. Whenever a character using the Injustice League team ability attacks an opposing character that was attacked by another character using the Injustice League team ability this turn, the action does not count toward your available actions for the turn. So there's a handful of them now that are listed as to it does this special thing and it doesn't count towards your action total. Your action total is determined usually by how many points, 100 points of build that the game is. So in a 300-point game, you are getting 3 actions in your action total. In a 500-point game, 5 actions in an action total. Now in higher point games, venues do tend to house rule that, say if you have a 1,000-point game, you're only going to get 5 actions. But either way you say it, your action pool isn't as important as it used to be. And the big proponent on that is the introduction and oversaturation of free actions. And that when characters can be making moves and attacks and what have you as free actions, your action total doesn't count as much as it used to. I mean, we had to see characters like White Witch, Agent 13, and the Green Power Battery come out just to counteract the fact of how many free actions you get in this game. So when it comes down to it, getting one more action out of your action total doesn't do much for you, especially when you still have to take an action token for that. So unless that is a free action attack, that you're still taking an action token, you're still doing that action, it just doesn't count toward your action total. And I found personally, unless you're playing a giant swarm team, you're going to be using up, your characters are going to be using their actions for the turn. There aren't too many situations where you want to give that character another action token after you've already used your actions for the turn. And moving on to the next one, after I've done that rant, yet another team ability that uses it, Justice League, which on the base is just the yellow JLA. When you give a character using the Justice League team ability a move action, it does not count towards your available actions for the turn. Revamp, please! Moving on. Justice Society. So this is listed as a white JSA on the team base. Characters using the Justice Society team ability may replace their defense value with the unmodified defense value of an adjacent friendly character using the Justice Society team ability. This is defend with a restriction. As long as both characters adjacent to each other are sharing this keyword, whether it be from both being printed on their base or wildcarding it, if they're adjacent, they're gonna share the defense. Works exactly like defend. Just like I was talking about with the Batman enemy, it's unmodified, so you take the unmodified, that's your replacement, add any modifications on top of that. I actually played a game a couple of weeks ago where I was wildcarding some JSAs, and I had someone with a really high defense, but I also had close combat reflexes, which is going to add 2 to my defense, so it went from having a really low defense to a really high defense. So much like defend, it is a good power. It's a good team ability. The only restriction on it, the only downside, is that both characters have to have the JSA, the Justice Society team ability. Moving on, we've got the Legion of Superheroes, and they're another wild card. So we saw a lot of them come out in Slosh. It's Superman and the Legion of Superheroes. Almost too many. We actually just recently did a sealed at our venue, at our the shop that we usually play Heroclix at, and we did a sealed kind of throwback of Slosh. And both Jason and I opened boosters, and the only team abilities we had in our entire boosters was the Legion of Superheroes. So we had a whole bunch of wildcards with nothing to wildcard. So that was kind of funny.
Married with Clix is proudly sponsored by Majestic's Comics, Collectibles, and Games, located in Costa Mesa, California, near the Orange County Fairgrounds. If you don't happen to live in the Costa Mesa, California area, though, you can check out their website, linked down below, majesticccg.com, where you can check out all kinds of stuff to shop for, their regular tournament listings if you happen to live in the area, or if you need to shop, they've always got some Heroclix stuff if you check out both their eBay store, which is linkable in their website, as well as their online store, which I believe should be having product added soon enough. Also, they keep regular articles written by some of the great minds in Heroclix, including Adam Friedman, the 2014 Heroclix Nationals champ, and of course, the owner of the store, Patrick Yabjoko, the 2014 Heroclix Worlds champ, 2014 Team Worlds champion, as well as the 2014 DragonCon ROC champion. Wow, that's quite a year he had last year. I think he's going to repeat it in 2015, right? So, don't forget to check the link down below, or check out the store if you live in the area.